Okay, this is a strange one. I'm going to try to do the good life meditation here in the dark. I've got my flashlight on, sitting on the ground for some partial illumination. And taking my shoes off. It's better. I find it's best, now this is where it really sounds weird. I find it's best to have as little on as possible. Sitting here on the sand in Siberia. It's hot. Just got back from a night hike. So here we go. Good life meditation for today. This is something that I do every day to remind myself of what's important to me. So that instead of being a drifting vessel in a momentary experience of life, I'll be in better control and operating in a more directed manner and in ways that are more meaningful, with meaning defined by the values that I've sought to develop over the years. Close the tent up here. So the first is the affirmation of human and civil rights. Individuals have particular rights that need to be respected. There are also some responsibilities, although I hesitate to get into that because I haven't given that a good think yet. But as for the rights, I need to respect that. Namely, we have the right to our lives, the freedom to pursue the best life we can without violating the individual rights of others or the civil liberties of the other groups in our society. There are six objectives. First objective is the objective of making good use of time, good and effective use of time in our lives, so that we don't waste our days. Second is the development and maintenance of good, sound life principles. These are the 20 to come in my life. 3 is the cultivation of good emotional reactions, reacting well to life, not letting our emotions lead us, but instead being informed by our emotions and making good decisions based on our better rational selves. Next is the performance of good actions, just doing good things throughout the day. Next is the recognition of true limits, knowing really what the limits of my mind and body are, and my life and my capabilities are, so that I don't overextend myself and get myself into trouble. Also, the recognition of true opportunities, what I have before me that I can make good advantage of. Now on to the 20 principles, and I'm a little tired, and this heat has really got me, so I'm going to go fast. Number 1 is the principle of war, arising every day and ready to go to war with everything I hold true, and with everything you hold true as well. I want to, what's that? This big spider just walked around on the ground. That's the drawback of having a flashlight on the ground in the desert sand in the summertime. You're going to bring everything, all the creepy crawlies in. So I better go fast. 2, if 1 was war, 2 is reason. The way that really makes sense of the world. And the sub-principles of reason are honesty and objectivity. 3 is the homunculus. A homunculus is nothing more than just a visual that I have for myself, to imagine this rational consciousness that's on top of my head, emotional rational consciousness that directs things, and it really does ride on top of this whole biological substance, and will go out when this goes out. When my body ends, so will my consciousness and my my homunculus. Homunculus is a word that simply means a little man. Like, imagine a little guy in the head operating things, sitting right behind your head, looking out through your eyes. That's my homunculus. I don't mean it to be real. It's just a way to visualize that. So I guess a homunculus is my answer to a soul. I don't believe we have a soul in the traditional sense of imagining something that survives our death. Instead, we have a homunculus that will not survive our death, but in the time of our living is the part that makes those big decisions, because our biology requires it. But biology in no way requires the homunculus, but our particular brand of biology seems to have made good use of it. Next is the home of good and evil. Good and evil reside with the homunculus. Good and evil do not float out there in the dark. They are good and evil are conscientious decisions and opinions that we have of the world around us, that we talk with others to make agreements over, or disagreements. Good and evil are what we say they are. They are not. There's no objective good or objective evil, like many of Plato's perfect forms out there in the universe. There's no perfect form of good or evil, or no. It appears to be no God-given model of good and evil either. There's some stories about that, but nobody can show that to be true. What we're left with instead is something that you and I agree on is good and evil. Next is 5, purpose. Without good and evil being objective, or they can be objective, but without them being absolute in the universe, we're left with to wonder what purpose is. And purpose, I see purpose is first and foremost biological, to get our genes into the next generation. And after that, then we're left on our own to figure something out. And I choose virtue, which I define as the objective well-being, improvement objective well-being of as many of conscious thinking creatures, and in basically all life. So I've got my baby. She's almost an adult now. So I've satisfied the first purpose of my life. And now the second purpose of my life is to be a virtuous man. And I strive for that every day. Part of the reason I come here is to remind myself of that responsibility, that the darkness is all around. But if I'm going to want to create some light or make some light in this world, I need to do it myself with the aid, support, and good counsel of my fellows. But I shan't rely on God, because God isn't there. And if you think God is there, and ask yourself ask yourself what the evidence is beyond something like faith, because faith can be used to believe anything you want. You can believe in the God of the Hindus, or the God of Abraham, or you can believe in Spider Grandmother out here in the desert, or you can believe there's a teapot floating around Venus no one can see. Faith will get you anywhere, and in that way it means that faith is not something that can be trusted, because anything that will get you to any destination you want is not a reliable end. A reliable means to an end. Better to find some means to an end that gets you to what's really true, and in the meantime withhold any decision about what is true until you have a good reason to think so. Now on to number 6, the atomic principle. Everything in the universe is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. Likewise, you and me. I like to hold up the sand in the desert and drop it down. Very, very, very soon, this is going to be back with that. The homunculus will wink out, and the only good that I will have done in my life is whatever virtuous ends I sought to achieve in the course of my living. Number 7 is nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, including you and me. And it's good to identify what the nature of things are. Like the nature of the desert, it would be harsh and and unforgiving. I better be careful here. The nature of myself is to walk alone in quiet, silent places and to think, and sometimes to turn on the camera. What's your nature? It's good to live according to that nature. Next, wisdom, or actually maturity. Maturity consists of two sub-principles, wisdom and fortitude. Wisdom is the what we gain through the course of living, of making mistakes and surviving them and being in a state prepared to not make those mistakes again, make better decisions. Fortitude is the willpower that it takes to execute well upon our maturity, upon the wisdom that we've gained. Couple those together, and that is wisdom. Sorry, I didn't quite say it good. So we have wisdom, which consists of, we have maturity, which consists of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity consists of wisdom and fortitude. Wisdom you gain through living, fortitude you can learn and through discipline. Combine those together, you have maturity. There, I think I said it right. Now the wind's really coming up. Better go fast. Next is the social principle. We need one another to survive, and our best ends are social ends. It's worthwhile to spend our lives towards social virtue. You get a lot of mileage out of your life in that way. The next one is this is number 10, the Feast of Offal. Offal is the waste and byproduct of what butchers make when they're chopping things up, and the little scraps that they have, they will put them in the sausage. That's the offal, or they toss it out. The Feast of Offal is when we're living our lives and unprincipled individuals and undisciplined individuals spill out all their foulness, their anger and frustration. You spill it out into the world, road rage and, screw you and, mean guy at work and whatever it is. That's all the Feast of Offal. We can choose to consume that if we want and consume that filth and bring it into ourselves, and that's not a good thing to do. Or we can look at that and say, feel a little sorry for them, that they're in a position where they're living an unprincipled or an undisciplined life, and it results in that Feast of Offal. And choose not to consume it, and choose to perhaps do what you can to help them, and also at the same time to not be giving out the filth yourself, and not even consuming your own filth if you can. Moving on quickly now, number 11 is temperance. Temperance is the controlled consumption of all things: food, drink, work, play, and even the consumption of our emotions. When they rise up within us, don't fly off the handle with them, but just nibble and sample at them and be prepared to be informed of those and make good decisions. Temperance consists of three sub-principles: suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Suffering is what we experience when we apply temperance, because we want it. When we deny ourselves a big slice of cheesecake, we suffer a little bit because we want it. When we deny ourselves a bender with the boys or the girls, when we deny ourselves a man or woman that we want, when we deny ourselves the rage that rises up within us, we suffer a little bit. We have to have that restraint. Simplicity is a shortcut to the virtue of temperance. If you live a simple life, then you're already there. And then apathy, which has a word that has a bad rap, makes it sound bad, but apathy really is just being able to recognize what is within our control, and then applying our emotions and our efforts to that, and then recognizing what is without our control, outside of our control, and having apathy towards those. If I get cancer, there's not much I can do about that besides applying the doctor's arts. I'm going to be apathetic towards that. I'm going to accept it for what it is. Doesn't mean I'm not going to just simply sit by and let it kill me. I'll do what I can. I'll go see a doctor and take whatever regimen of protocol of medications, chemotherapy, whatever the case may be, within reasonable measure. I like that. That can be applied in just about everything in life. I apply apathy every day, especially at work, where there's so much that's outside of my control. I'm just a lowly worker bee. So I worry about the things that are within my control and let the rest basically not slide, but not get to me. It's a tricky thing to do, worthwhile thing to do. Next, number 12 is agency and the great indifference. This guy looking on the screen right now, that's an agent. That's me. You're an agent. This plant that the creosote bush behind my camera, that's an agent as well. All life is an agent of one sort or another. Rocks are not agents, nor is dirt, nor is wind, or basically organic versus inorganic for the most part. And the higher the consciousness, the sentience, the more agency there is. The grand agent of all would be God, of course. And a lot of what religion does is, in creating the agency of God, is provide basically it provides a grand oversight of everything. Even the non-agent things have some meaning and purpose. There's someone overlooking everything. But when I look out at the wilderness, I don't see any agency besides you and me and our fellow animals for the most part, and I guess in a way the plants. I see emptiness. I see quiet. I see wind. I see the noise of nature when it's not quiet. I see the indifference that's out there. So I try to describe the two as agency on the one hand and the great indifference on the other hand. The great indifference being nothing more than the absence of agency and the absolute fact that it just doesn't give a damn about us. There's no good reason to think that there's any God out there or anything beyond you or me in terms of caring. And our pets, of course, and some other animals that might care about us. But the rest of it really is red in tooth and claw. Very, very dangerous and very, very deadly to most of the universe. Is incredibly deadly to us. We really have each other. So it's not, for me, this is not a downer. This is a reality check. And so instead of getting sad that the universe appears to be godless and without any oversight or a great agent watching us, or at least there's no evidence for it, so no good evidence for it at all, I instead turn to my other agents, my wife, my daughter, my brother, my mom, my friends. Not so much the friends, because I don't have too many friends anymore, because I've really focused on the family and this experience of the great indifference. But I do really, really focus on those. It's made me a better man, the experience of the great indifference. That's why I come out to this place. Next is the best seat in the house. It's number 13. Best seat in the house is to recognize that, or to not want to be anyone else, or to be anywhere else, or be doing anything else. But to be okay with just who I am right here, right now. Tricky thing, to be satisfied while still striving, but it can be done. Next is the path of wildness, a fancy, funny name for something that is really just an ability to make a decision and to move forward in a tough time. So the way it works is this. So you have a decision that you need to make, but don't have all the facts yet. Then decide upon a certain amount of time that you can use to think about it. Something just bite me. Told you the creepy crawlies are coming. A certain amount of time that you can think about it. And when you get to that time, ask yourself, can I give myself more time if I'm not ready to make the decision? If so, then give yourself a little more time. If you can't, then be ready to make the decision. And if you don't have all the facts, then listen to your gut. Let your gut guide you a little bit. And be prepared to make a mistake if you're going to do that. Recognizing that there's virtue in moving forward, rather than being stuck and just contemplating forever and letting our life pass beneath us or pass by us as we're just sitting there stuck in the sand. Make a decision, move forward in a reasonable manner, knowing there's virtue in forward motion, even if it leads us right off the edge of a cliff. That's the path of wildness. And I live that path quite often, especially in places like this, where I explore in places that I've never been. And I kind of feel my gut, use my gut to find my way there. Sometimes I make mistakes. So far, I've been able to get out of all those. May not always be so lucky. The next one is the risk of avoiding risk. This is number 14. This is recognizing that when we're young in life, we see some surface level risks. These are the risks of, for example, not getting enough education, or not getting a good job, not finding someone to spend your life with, not saving for retirement, all these types of things. And our parents tend to caution us about those. They put big warning signs up and say, watch out for all these things. Find someone good, find a good man or woman, start saving money, get a good education and get a good job. And you do all those things. And that's the risk of, sorry, I'm not saying it right. That's the surface level risk. And when we do that, we may be satisfying that risk or avoiding those risks, but opening ourselves up to a much deeper, more insidious risk. And that's the risk of not living according to our nature, not living the lives of, not being the people that we are. And that's a tricky thing because we develop as people as we go. But there's something crawling on the tent. But as we develop, we become something. So if you avoid those first risks, you might go on a course that was against your nature. And what happens is, and I'm being long-winded, what happens is you end up an older man like me or an older woman, and guess what? You didn't live according to your nature, and it's too late. it may be hard, you can't go back. You are somebody else. And you could argue that there's a different nature to that, but most of the time, you've sacrificed something. There was a nature that you had earlier on, and that is gone. And there's a regret that comes with that, and a loss. That's what I call the deeper level risk. So in satisfying those, or avoiding the surface level risks, you may open yourself up to the deeper risk of not being the man or woman that you really are, not living according to your nature. And that's a very, very dangerous thing to do. It can be very lead to a lot of regret later in life. On the converse, if you go after that deeper level risk, and satisfy that, to live according to your nature, you may open yourself up to missing out to the surface level risks. Because you might wind up older, having had a life that was living according to the person that you are, but you didn't find anybody to spend your life with. You don't have any money left, and you didn't get a very good education, and you never had a very good career. So, but I know this is the hippie in me, but sometimes that's a little easier to deal with sometimes in the long run than having sold yourself out. So watch out for that risk of avoiding risk. Next is sin and damnation. There are 5 cardinal sins in my life, and really they're just one, but I'll go ahead and enumerate them. They're all the same thing. First one is falsity. That's what it is. Falsity is not living according to your nature or being untrue in any way whatsoever. Number 2 is credulity, which is, of course, just an overwillingness and eagerness to believe. And it gets us a lot if we can believe just to get there. It can buy us into a nice social circle at the church. It can get us to push away this darkness that's all around me by telling us that we have an afterlife waiting for us, mansions in heaven perhaps. Credulity can get us just about anything. That's why credulity, by another name, is faith, which is, as it said, faith is evidence of things unseen. That's what a ridiculous statement. Evidence of things unseen. Things unseen are things unseen. If there's no manifestation of them whatsoever, we have no reason to believe that they're really there. We may suspect that, but we withhold our judgment until we have some evidence that that's the case. Faith really is a dangerous, dangerous thing. And it deserves to be a sin and not a virtue. Next is superstition, followed by dogma. And I always say those in quick succession because I think they're self-evident why superstition is a sin. Because it's basically just like credulity and falsity. It's just, and faith even, it gets you where you want to be without the hard work of proving it's true. And then dogma, truth by virtue of authority, tradition, not a good thing. Truth needs to stand on its own 2 feet with every generation, with every man, every woman, every child, always. Past precedent is never proof that anything is true. It could heighten could give it weight and give us good reason to investigate it. If generation after generation believes something is true, but still, you got to do the hard work yourself to figure it out. Next, we're getting near the end here, is, and it's just good because all the creepy crawlies are coming out now. The desert floor is alive with things with lots of legs right now. Next is complete oblivion. When we die, there's no final reunion, no final reconciliation, and no final justice. There's no reason to believe we will see anyone that we knew in our life after we're dead. There will be no reconciliation with those people, of course, because we won't see them. And there's no final justice. Those that get away with crimes and sins and bad things in life, they got away with it. It doesn't appear to be there will be some St. Peter with a book of good and bad that'll send one up or down. There's no reason to think any of this is true. So if you want to have reunion, you better seek it now with those you love and that you want to be with. If you want to reconcile, reach out to them now. Give them a phone call today. And if you want justice, seek after it now. Almost done. Great Life Adventure. Great Life Adventure is the showcased, the opportunity to exercise who you are, to take that nature that you have within you and make something of it. Maybe it's a youthful, and I recommend the decade of the 20s for this. Maybe it's a youthful trip around the world. Maybe it's a career that you've always wanted. Maybe it's being a type. Maybe it's being a particular person that is a little bit different, or maybe it's being a person that's completely fits in. Maybe that's your great life adventure, is the adventure of conformity. I don't know. But what I can say is that if you give yourself that, then it will be formative in your youth. Especially important to do it at a young age, because it will make you the man or woman that you will be later on in life. And that will make all the difference about whether or not you avoid the risk of avoiding risk. Whether you avoid or suffer that deeper level risk. And guess what? You can have many great life adventures, but I really, really, really recommend one in your 20s, preferably during or after college. Go to college. Go all the way. Even if people tell you that, go as far as you can. Even if people tell you that it's not the best path to financial success anymore, there's something about the college environment. That environment can do amazing things in terms of catalyzing the person that you are, and helping you to discover and pursue your own nature. Then give yourself the great life adventure after college. Almost just two left. Season of philosophy. Sometime after the great life adventure, if you're lucky, you may become a person that wants to record some life adventure, or record what you've learned in the course of your life in a season of philosophy. A season of philosophy is when the muse starts to speak, when you have the inclination to write it down or make a video or whatever the case may be, to record whatever you learned in the course of your life. Point is, do it when the muse speaks. Do it at that season, because the season will pass. If you tell yourself, I'll wait, guess what? You may wait too long, and you may be sitting there mute upon a bed, maybe stricken by stroke, or unable to write, or unable to communicate, or maybe just your mental faculties have diminished. Maybe Alzheimer's got you, or a dementia of some sort, or maybe you're just tired and you can't do it anymore. So be careful to not miss the opportunity when it arrives. And finally, lastly, arena and utility. Every circumstance in life is an arena for the execution of your principles in pursuit of those objectives, whatever those may be for you. Now you know what my 20 are and what my 6 are, my 20 principles and my 6 objectives. I recommend that you develop your own. You're welcome to borrow mine if you want. I certainly borrowed a lot of these from what I learned along the way. But every day and every circumstance is an opportunity to utilize those, and you'll find utility in the exercise of these, and keeping them handy, reciting them. I recommend daily to keep them current and in your mind. It's amazing how they become almost subliminal, just right there behind your eyes with a homunculus, ready to use even when you don't consciously enlist them. Well, with that, I'm going to turn off the camera, and I'm going to get to bed and see what happens with any of these creatures of the night. And I'm going to say goodnight to you. I wish you all the best. Oyasumi nasai. That just means good night in Japanese. One little bit from one of my great life adventures. Take care. Just thought I'd turn the camera on for a moment, try to capture the quiet.